And as usual, it's a delight and an honor to welcome you to yet another session of our Ukraine Crisis webinar series, which we launched in November of 2022. And if you're joining us for the first time, during these sessions, we debate and analyze and share reflections on the impact, the socioeconomic impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war on African countries. And these conversations are based on Academia 2063's Ukraine Crisis Brief Series, published on our portal on academia2063.org. For this 14th session today, we will discuss exposure to global commodity trade and market disruptions, impacts on growth, poverty, and food security in Malawi. And as always, we are looking forward to a highly interactive and engaging conversation with you. Don't just sit there, please go to the chat. Tell us your name, tell us the organization you represent, what you hope to see during the session. And of course, if you have any pertinent, questions or contributions that you would like to be discussed during this session, please head to the Q&A below and share them, and the moderator will bring them to the floor during the conversation. As always, we invite you to raise your hand if you wish to intervene live, and you'll be given the floor. Before we kick off, I would like to wish a happy Independence Day to our friends and partners from Senegal. We hope you're having a good day as you celebrate this moment in your history. As always, we are providing simultaneous interpretation in English and French. Please click on the globe icon on your screen should you need translation, and choose the language track you desire. And of course, we are live streaming on our YouTube channel, Academia 2063. Now that the housekeeping is out of the way, I will now hand over to the moderator of today's session. He's a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI. Please welcome Dr. John Ulimwengu.
Thank you, Lai, and thank you for those joining the seminar today. Yes, another session, the 14th session on the impact of Ukraine-Russian war and on African countries. Just a very short introduction from my side. We live today in an era of a high frequency of shocks. We see events of extreme weather, conflict. We know of COVID-19, now the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. And in addition to that, more households are facing multiple shocks. So the same household that has been affected by COVID-19 is affected by the war in Ukraine, by weather-related shocks. Therefore, it's become critical to timely provide responses to those shocks, to make sure that households who are being affected do not waste their assets because of the shocks. To provide those timely responses, we need evidence, so we need knowledge, we need information. And as it happened for COVID-19, Academia 2063 has been in the forefront in generating those evidence, in generating knowledge to craft those responses, to design those responses. And today, or at least this series on the war in Ukraine, is another example of that role that Academia 2063 has been playing in generating evidence to help policymakers, decision makers design policies, design interventions that align with the shocks facing households across the continent. So today we are blessed to have Dr. Ismail Fofana. He will be making a presentation on Malawi. Malawi, one of those African countries that is affected by the war in Ukraine, because of its dependence to the international market. But also Malawi has been lately in the news because of the tropical cyclone Freddy that affected more or less 1 million people in Malawi. So that's the context. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Dr. Ismail for his presentation. Thank you, Ismail. It's you have the stage.
All right. Thank you, John. Let me start by sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
I have it on the presentation mode. All right. Thank you very much, John, for the nice introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and share with you some of the findings of studies that we did on these very important topics on the Ukraine crisis and how it is impacting African economies. And we are looking one specific channel here, which is the exposure to global commodity trade and market disruption. And today's presentation is on Malawi. So we'll be looking at how Malawi is exposed to this, this conflict through its exchanges with the global, with the other countries. So how it is connected to the global market, and how this is it's having ramifications through the economy, impacting growth, impacting employment, poverty, etc. So I'll be talking about. I will be making a quick introductions and looking at how prices have changed, after the onset of the crisis, and also looking at how Malawi is exposed to the global commodity markets. And then I'll quickly talk about the analytical framework that we used, the simulation scenario that we built, and I'll spend a little bit more time on the results and before concluding. The war between Russia and Ukraine has contributed to increased prices of primary commodities. You can see from this graph in the blue bars are the predicted prices before the war started between Ukraine and crisis. So these are prices that were predicted by the World Bank in October 2021. We know that the Ukraine crisis started on February 2022. So this was the latest projections of how prices in 2022 will evolve and before the crisis. And then on the red bars are price projections on April 2022. So right after the conflict started. These studies was done around May, June last year. So we had access to that projection, the April 2022 projections, which is right after the beginning of the crisis. So you can see for almost all commodities here, prices have started to increase. Energy, prices have increased sharply. We can also see the fertilizer also prices have increased, and also for some foods items and minerals, prices also are increasing. Oh, now what does it mean for a country like Malawi? It doesn't mean that these price increases that we are seeing, there are still prices that are, have a modest increase and others are declining. So the way countries will be affected by the global commodity price shocks will depend on how they are connected to the global market, how they export on the export side and on the import side. So the trade structure of the country is important to be able to have that kind of first view of how the country will be impacted. So you have in these two tables, the up table is the international price of top export commodities of Malawi. So the top export commodities of the country is tobacco and unmanufactured tobacco, which represent more than 50% of the total exports in 2020 here. So you can see that the prices, when we compare the scenario before that was projected for tobacco, it was around 0.6% increase in 2022, and then a little bit more in 2023, and then, and with the Ukraine crisis, we don't see major changes, 1.1%, and then prices decline a little bit, etc. So really not a major change here. And the same pattern for the tea. Tea is also the second largest exported primary commodity. I'm talking about. So here prices were projected to decline before the crisis, and then still the crisis on April 2022 has not really affected that much, the prices of these commodities. And we have the same situations for sugar beet prices. That's the only commodities, top exported commodities for which prices have evolved favorably. It was, declining before, projected to decline, and then we have a slight, recovery here. Prices after the crisis, prices were supposed to be stagnating, not changing that much comparing 2022 and 2021. Groundnut and soybean, other important exported commodities. Here we're seeing that the prices are increasing after at the onset of the war. So you can see here, when you compare the baseline scenario, prices were almost declining for groundnut and stagnating for soybean, but now we can see that prices are increasing double-digit, 12% and 24%. So here, those are the two commodities for which we can see that among the top exported one, where the prices are really, increasing. So one will expect then have a slightly little increase of export prices, which you have on the right side. It shows, how prices, price indexes, export-import price indexes are changing. So the lower one, the table on the below table is on the import side. Sorry. So the import side, basically, you have petroleum, which is the most imported primary commodities, which prices have increased significantly. Fertilizer is the second, and that price also have skyrocketed, at 76% increase compared to before the crisis. It was supposed to decline by 1.3%. And then we have tobacco is still another imported commodities here. Palm oil prices have increased. Wheat prices have also increased. So we can see here that we have a significant increase in prices that the prices of commodities that Malawi is importing. The only commodities for which prices decline with the war is the iron products. So basically, this will be translated into shock on the terms of trade. As you can see on the graph, the right side graph, that export prices in 2022 increased a little bit, around 5%, while import prices has increased significantly, more than 20%, around 22, 23%. And then prices are also projected to decline. Export prices decline more than import prices. Import prices stagnating in 2023 and 2024. Now we see import prices declining a little bit more than export prices. So basically, here what we observe for Malawi is a negative terms of trade shock. So terms of trade projected to deteriorate in 2022 because import prices are increasing more than export prices. And in 2023 also, the terms of trade will still continue deteriorating because of export prices also declining here more than import prices. Now, in 2024, we start seeing a little bit, improvement in the terms of trade. So basically, this impact on the terms of trade will impact the balance of payment, the current account balance and the balance of payment of the country, and spread the shocks across, many other commodities beyond, the commodities that are top imported and top exported by the country. So the industries that are facing, that are exporting and importing will be impacted by the specific price shocks that they are experiencing. But also the entire economy will be affected, including these commodities that we're talking about. They will be affected by the terms of trade shocks. Now, in order to capture the direct and indirect effects of the war in Ukraine, we deployed the tools that we have been developing under the research program and the Academia 2063, which is a series of single country CG models and a micro simulation model. So the single country CG models allows to assess the impact on the economy in general, the GDP, employment, trade effects, while the micro simulation models help us to extend the work to and look at how individuals, households are impacted, how income is distributed, inequalities and poverty effects will be captured by the micro simulation model. Before using the models, the two models, we updated these models. We used the latest macro structure of the economy, of Malawian economy, from the World Development Indicator database, but also we updated these models using the latest trade structure, import and export data from the Africa Agriculture Trade Monitoring, which is maintained by Academia 2063 and IFPRI. So these two databases was used to update the model to make sure that we have up-to-date structure of the economy and also up-to-date structure of pattern of trade structure of the economy. Then to build the simulation scenarios, we use the primary commodity price. We use the World Economic Outlook from the IMF, which have the projections before the crisis, how countries was set to grow, the growth rate of the economy. That was published on, sorry, this is a mistake. I think it was published on October 2021. So we used the publication of October 2021 to build the baseline scenario without, I will talk about these scenarios. The baseline scenario is without the crisis. And also we used the price predictions. So the commodity price database, call it Commodity Market Outlook, from the World Bank, where prices are 46 commodity prices are tracked and monitored over time, and also the World Bank provide a kind of short mid-term projection of prices, and that's the information that we use. Here also we use the October 2021 and the April 2022 publications. So the October 2021, before the crisis, publications were used to design the baseline scenario. Now I'm talking about the simulation scenario. All right, as you can see here. So these two information, the market information, commodity market outlook informations, the projection for 2022 and 2024, we use the October 2021 projection. This is without the disruption that we have been going through with the intensification of the Russia-Ukraine war. But also the IMF was also projecting these economies to grow after COVID, recovering slowly, and now going in, having a growth starting to increase, slowly between 2022, etc., to all the way to 2023 and 2024. So we use that information to calibrate the model. That's the baseline. Then now the Ukraine scenario. So when I talk about Ukraine scenario, is the disruptions that we have been going through, and since the war started, and the information about the disruptions, how the disruption is affecting the global commodity markets, was provided by the April 2022 projection by the World Bank. In the conclusion, I'll talk about the latest projections, how this projection is compared to the earlier one, April. So I'll come back to that and see whether the situation has worsened or improved. Then I'll come back to that. But when the study was conducted, that information was not available. The study was conducted, as I said, around May, June last year. So the only information, the latest information that was available to us was the projection on April 2022. So then we use that information and calibrate the models, and then simulate the impact of the shock. So the first result that we look at is the trade pattern of the country, how trade have evolved over time. But here, what you're seeing in the graph is to compare the baseline, how the country was set to to grow, and also to how the import and export volume will be was projected before, and then after the crisis where we are, and then where we compared the two, and then you have the percentage point change between the Ukraine scenario and the baseline scenario. So basically, what happened is because of the war, we have a significant decline in both import and export. We can understand, this is on my left side. You can see on the right side some explanation of why we're having imports are declining because of the high price of imports that we have been facing with the war. So prices are increasing sharply. So one will expect that import will be declining. But prices of export are also increasing in 2022. One will expect that the country will seize that opportunity and increase a little bit the export. But what we're seeing here is export is declining. Here, the reason why export is declining is you have the inflationary pressure that is impacting different industries, exporting industries. Both your output price is increasing a little bit, but your input prices are increasing more than your output prices. So basically, the pressure on that increase in output price is affecting your margin and affecting your etc. and affecting then the productions the country. But also we can talk about, because of the short-term impacts assessment, it's also, you have the kind of production capacity that is limited. Also, to seize, any opportunity that we have in terms of price increase. In 2023, here it is expected that import will continue to decline, still with the higher inflationary pressure, but also export will continue to decline. Here we can explain export price declining now, export volume declining because of the prices are declining here, but we still have the inflationary pressure that is also still there. In 2024, sorry, we start having a slightly recovery, but export prices are still declining, because you can see on the right side that prices are declining, continue to decline, the price index, while price of imports are declining now, more than 5%, and then you start seeing import increasing. What is the implication for the economy? So basically, one will expect, with that negative terms of trade shock and impacting in trade, so you'll have the economy slowing down or contracting. For the case of Malawi here, in blue bar on my left side, you see that the economy before the crisis was set to recover from COVID and growing slowly and coming to the let's say natural or long-term or mid and long-term growth rate. So moving from 3% to 4.5 and to 4-5%. But with the shock and the inflationary pressures that countries is facing, so the country was expected to contract in 2022 and then start growing a little bit in 2023 and 2024. Here, it doesn't mean that the numbers that you're getting from the ground, that you will see that there will be a contraction or there will be another. This is only one channel that has been, explored. So the impact of the global commodity prices on the economy. So the statistic that you're getting on the ground there, so many things are happening at the same time. All right. So many things are happening on the same time. So give me, and then the results of all these shocks are going on through the economy, the one that you're seeing in the statistic. But here, what you're observing is one channel, which is the impact of global commodity prices, is likely to create, contractions of the economy. So now, if you see, if the economy is still contracting in the statistic there, then you can think about how the contribution of these channels to the entire economy growth. If we see a little growth, slowdown of growth in the economy, so you can see that yes, this has contributed to negatively contributed to the economy, but probably there are other positive impacts that are coming from other channels that contributed to mitigate the negative impact from this channel. So, but what is important here is this channels has contributed, you can see on my right side, has contributed to lower the GDP of the country. So the country now is on the lower GDP growth trajectory. The blue trajectory was the baseline, so the country was growing. This is now in absolute numbers, million of local currency. So you have, the country was growing around from 10 billions local currency up to moving. But with this crisis, so you lose 1 year growth, and then the country is now set to a lower growth trajectory. Overall, in terms of, if you take the 3 years of the projection during, or what is predicted in terms of GDP growth, what is projected in terms of GDP growth for the 3 years, 22 to 24, the country will be losing around 1.5 billion local currency, which is roughly around 1.8 billion US dollar lost because of the Ukraine crisis. And then because of lower growth trajectory that the country is now with due to this crisis, with lower GDP generated in the country, so projected to be generated, then you have, that will have also an impact of unemployment, employment levels. So you see the employment that was set to increase at 3%, 3.9%, and 3.7% under baseline scenario, that employment creation, employment generation will slow down to around 1% in 2022, 2.6 and 3.4. So the gap, there's a loss of employment here. So that gap you can see on my right side, that's you have a gap between the baseline scenario and the Ukraine scenario. And within the 3 years, the country is losing the opportunity of creating 1.6 million employment because of the crisis. In terms of poverty, here we still have the same story with, you know, the poverty rate on the baseline scenario, the poverty index was projected to increase, you know, whatever you know, poverty line we use here. Sorry, this is the difference between the baseline scenario and the Ukraine scenario. Basically, the Ukraine scenario will contribute to slow down poverty reduction or increase. So basically, if the country was set to reduce poverty, depending on whether the poverty reduction was set to be 5%, 6%, 7%, with this increase that we're seeing, is that poverty reduction you know, path will be slow, or if the country, we can even see if the poverty reduction was a little bit lower, then you can see an increase of poverty. So you may be an increase of poverty or slowdown of poverty because of the Ukraine crisis. But what is important here, if you look at in terms of numbers, number of poor, so because of the Ukraine crisis, if you look, take the three from 2022 to 2024, normally you have 1.2 million people who will be under the poverty line because of the crisis. All right, if these people were set to be out of poverty because of all the effort that the country is doing to reduce poverty, then the Ukraine crisis will wind up, you know, this all this effort that the country has been doing. In terms of poverty, international poverty line also have the same story. Almost 1.3 million people will be under the international poverty line because of the crisis. And if you take the poverty line, international poverty line at 1.9 US dollar per day, you're around 1 million per person. Now, in terms of food security, so we have you know, the analysis has projected an increase in consumer price index. Here comparing the Ukraine scenario with the baseline scenario. So you have an increase compared to the baseline scenario of the consumer price index. And this increase will be high for rural populations compared to urban population. That's the first table on my left side. All right, so the table below on my left side now, look at the income side, how the income is generated in the country under the Ukraine scenario compared to the base scenario. So we can see here income growth is slowing down with the growth that is slowing down also on the other slide. So income is declining for the entire in all areas, urban and rural, but this decline is more pronounced in rural area. And then consequently, you have, on the one hand, the income that is declining and prices are also increasing. Then we expect that the consumption will be affected, and consumption of urban and rural area is declining. And this decline is more pronounced for rural households compared to urban households. Finally, in the conclusion, we put together the price changes or the price projections on April, the one that we use in the analysis, and look at a little bit how prices have evolved more recently with the October 2022 predictions. So basically, you can see that all prices are still, that's increasing, for all commodities, that almost all commodities that we have that are covered, by the World Bank study here. But in general, when you compute here the simple average of price changes, you see that for all commodities, prices have not changed that much, between the two projections, the April and October. Here, I'm talking about simple average computation, all right? No weight. Simple average prices were on April have increased around 27% in average, and also in October, it's still 27%. But what have changed here, if you look at now for different categories, you have, heterogeneity, and when you look at those different categories, within the different categories, you have also heterogeneity among the commodities. Energy, for instance, have increased. The average was at 69%. Now it's at 92%. So energy prices have increased significantly between the two predictions. Agriculture and food prices have increased a little bit. We can see that there is a little increase. It was at 18%, simple average percent. Now we are at 22%. So prices of agriculture and food commodities has continued to increase. When you look at agricultural raw material here, there we have a significant change in terms of the way the prediction was between the two predictions. The initial predictions was 22% increase, and now the final predictions, the prediction on April 2022 is declining by 17%. So that's really the reverse. So we have the reverse situation. Fertilizer prices have not changed that much, 71% before and still 77%. So it's continued to increase. They have continued to increase. And mineral, also we have, as for raw materials, agricultural raw material, we've seen that prices was set to increase before, just after the onset of the war, and then prices on October 2022, most mineral prices are declining. So we have a decline by -1%, while we had 14% increase before. So what does it mean for now Malawi? With all the growth, employment, and poverty assessment that we made, are we seeing pressure easing or pressure building up in Malawi? So we look at how the top commodities exported and imported, how these prices have changed between the two predictions. So what we're seeing here is export prices have improved. All right, so you can see for tobacco, no major changes, but tea, groundnut, sugar prices have increased during the October predictions compared to April. So here we can say that this is good improvement for the country. When you compare now, when you see now for the import one prices have petroleum prices have not changed that much, but palm oil, wheat, and other fertilizer prices have declined a little bit. So the pressure of high import prices also has reduced. So that's what you're seeing now on my left side on the graph, So at least for these top commodities, that you have the terms of trade, the deterioration of terms of trade is still there, but now the magnitudes have reduced with the latest predictions that we have. So basically, what is the implication for the results that we have, the analysis that we did? We still, the tendency or the trend will still going to be the same, but the magnitude of the impact may be less than what we have predicted using the April forecast. I'm going to stop here, John, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ismail. Thank you for the very insightful presentation. Before I open it for questions to the audience, I have my two questions. The first is, how do you disentangle the effects of the war from all the other shocks, including COVID-19? Some are still believe that there is still a lingering or lagging effect of COVID-19 that are now going parallel to the war in Ukraine. But how do you disentangle those two effects? The other question is so what? Assume you have a 5-minute meeting with the president of Malawi. Now in addition to, so he has faced COVID-19, now the war in Ukraine, now he's facing the effect of a tropical cyclone Freddy. So what do you tell him based on the findings of your analysis? 5 minutes for His Excellency to make that critical decisions to save the country of my good friend, Greenwell Machaya. And then I'll open it up to the audience. So let's start with those two questions. And then please feel free, either through the chat or raise your hand. We will give you the floor. That's how it goes, right?
Yes, John, that's how it goes.
All right.
Okay, John, thank you for the questions. So basically, how do we disentangle the effect of the crisis from the disruption that COVID-19 has already, the country was already going through, is the baselining and the counterfactual, let's say, the Ukraine scenario. The October 2021 predictions of price changes factor in already the COVID, aftermath, effect. All right. So countries, basically recovering for almost all commodities, prices starting to come back to the normal fluctuations, no more higher, except, there was one fertilizer prices, which was around 50% increase to phosphate, something like that. But so basically, how do we disentangle it? We say, okay, these predictions, price predictions for 2022, 2023, and 2024, before Ukraine crisis, has already factored in the COVID situation, all right? So if there was no Ukraine war, that was our best knowledge or our best prediction of price changes over the next 3 years. So then Ukraine come later, and then the prices were collected and etc. during this period, and then there was another prediction of prices. So the change between the two predictions, that's what we attributed to the Ukraine crisis. All right, we attribute that price change to Ukraine crisis. Then the so what with the analysis, 5 minutes. So I hope that, do I have 5 minutes to say everything that I should say to, I hope no. So let me summarize it. So I will just say to the president or to any policy makers that you have so many challenges that the country, the economy is facing right now. Among these challenges is the Ukraine war. Is it important for you to focus on the Ukraine war or not? I would say yes, it is important. All right, because that specific channels we have assessed it, and we have seen that it has a major impact on the economy. So you should pay some attention to it. It's not a waste of time. So what should we do? You should do is to manage your foreign, because you're having a deterioration of the term of trade, which will have an impact on the exchange rate, real exchange rate, and the balance of payment. So it will be good that your team focus on the way of easing the pressure on the real exchange rate. That's one thing. All right. So if you have access to, external funding to help you ease the real exchange rate pressure, because you having a decline in your export, less revenue, and your import prices are increasing sharply. So basically, you'll have that pressure there. So if you have access to it, foreign, currencies, so it will be good that you use that to ease the pressure there. But also then look at the specific commodities. You can look at the specific commodities or industries which are more impacted, and have a package for these commodities, these industries, to ease the negative effect that they are going through. It can be fiscal, it can be any other, mostly it's a fiscal package that's that is more the quick, let's say the low-hanging fruit for impacting quickly these sectors, industries. So yeah, that's what I will say in less than 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. We have a question from Abdulaziz Amadou Hassani and then Aminu Aruna. Abdu.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was asking what are the top 3 sectors or products in which Malawi must urgently intervene to mitigate the Ukraine scenario, according to your analysis?
Thank you, Abdul. And then Aminu Aruna.
Yes, Ismail, thank you very much for the presentation. I think my question is a little bit related to what just asked the question now, related to the so what. I think it's very important because, without survey, we know that there is negative impact. That is quite clear. So, but what will be helping in terms of policy is to do some scenario in terms of policy measures that can help to mitigate those negative impact. So you have already given some example, but my little contribution may be to see from the production point of view. For instance, in which area the country can invest more, okay, in order to increase the productivity, to increase their income, in order at least to try to reduce the effect that we are seeing. So the second part of my question is that, of course, we are seeing now the effect of the COVID or of the Ukraine, but we know that most of this country, they have already a lot of challenge without the crisis that we are following also. So it is also good in the scenario to show what alternative the country can also take in order to increase their growth. Thank you.
Ismail, back to you. Did we lose Ismail?
Ismail, are you there? Let's give him a couple of seconds.
He's back.
Ismail, yeah, yes, I was having a
go ahead.
issue. I couldn't hear the second question.
Aminu, can you repeat the second question just quickly?
Yes, the second question is that this country, as I said, they are already going also through some challenges without the crisis, Ukraine, COVID, and so on and so forth. So it will be good if the model also help to show to the country what they can do also to increase their growth rate.
Is there any alternative ways those countries can, recover from the war in Ukraine?
Is that the second question, John?
Yes.
Turn off my camera. I'm having an issue with the internet connection. Can you repeat, please?
Yes, the second question was, are there alternative ways country can use, like Malawi, to recover from the impact of the war?
So do you want me to address these two questions?
Yes.
Okay. In the document, we have in the brief that we published for Malawi, we have make some suggestion of policies that can be, helpful to mitigate or to address some of the issues that they are facing with the Ukraine war here. But we did not made any simulation. We did not make any simulations on these policy instruments. All right. I believe the first step in this kind of analysis, what we wanted to provide to countries and to assess how important is these channels in terms of impact on the economy, on the livelihood of people. So I think that's the first step. And then the second step, if the country wants to take it seriously, now further analysis can be done with the instruments, that they have lined up to help mitigate the impact. So these this instrument you can test the impact of this instrument, including also the financing options. It's possible. That can be another step. But for now, it's quickly provide that information to countries saying that this channel is important or it is not. It doesn't mean that all countries will have a negative impact. There are countries who are having a positive impact of Ukraine crisis. Through the analysis that we have done so far, there are several countries for which the terms of trade is positive and for which the growth and poverty impact is positive too. All right, and etc. So basically, I think that's the first step. Now, the top 3 sectors, I don't have them on the top of my head, but what I can say is maize in the ag sector. Maize is one of the one of the sector for which the challenge is high in Malawi because of the high price of fertilizers. And this is in Malawi a sector that is using also using intensively fertilizer. I'll rather say the ag sector can be. I can also cite a tobacco sector. Tobacco sector facing a high price of fertilizer, and that sector contributing to the exchange, bringing exchange revenue, because being exported, that also will contribute to ease a little bit the real exchange rate pressure. All right, so we can see that maize as a staple crop, helping also to ease, prices, the pressure of food prices in the country, and etc., all the implications having. But also, if you have these top export commodity, sugar, tobacco, for instance, and also support these sectors in terms of high, against the high fertilizer prices, they will also contribute to ease the effect on the real the exchange rate channel. Alternative way to recover, I'm not getting that questions. It will be. Can you be more specific when you say alternative way? Because we provided, as I was saying, there are some policy solutions to address the challenges that these countries are facing. If alternative way means policy recommendations, so I provided some of them here, and then you have others in the document, in the brief for Malawi. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ismail. I don't know unless is there any other question? Quickly, from just listening to what you were saying, when you consider the 3 shocks: fuel, food, and fertilizer, in the case of Malawi, how can you rank the effect of the 3? Which one comes first? If so, and then next, in follow-up to that, is there any behavioral change that you would advise to the government in terms of, I know with respect to the price of wheat, some African countries are now pushing for cassava to replace wheat flour with cassava flour, which triggered that change in the industry, the private sector, the consumers as well. Do you think that Africa as a whole can take advantage of these shocks to, implement some new technology in the case of wheat flour replaced by cassava flour?
All right, thank you, John. That's a good question. Even if I don't have evidence to really, talk about it, I can only speculate, for now about that one. But what I can say about fuel, food, fertilizer, unfortunately, we have not disentangles, this commodity price impact into fuel, etc., etc. It is a good suggestion in the future analysis if we can, because that's not going to take us a lot of time. You just have to isolate fuel and see how it's impacting the economy. Ceteris paribus, other things remain unchanged. And then you isolate food and you isolate fertilizer. All right. So what we've done so far is just fertilizer that we have isolated, and to look at what is the impact of fertilizer. We look at some specific commodities: fertilizer, wheat, and also wheat, and also vegetable oils. All right, or oil seeds, oil seed and vegetable oils. That's what we did, but we haven't done it for fuel, food, and fertilizer. So anything I'll say here is just speculating. I don't have evidence backing, what I can say. What I can say is fertilizer shocks is a very important. In a country like Malawi, it has two impacts. It's impacting food prices differently. It's impacted the supply of staple food like maize. So you're having higher prices is impacting the supply, and the negative supply also having increasing prices. But also high prices of fertilizer impacting these cash commodities that are highly exported in the country, and these commodities are mostly agriculture commodities are the most highly exported, the most highly exported in the country. So basically, you're having another effect coming through the real exchange rate. All right. So basically, you're having less revenue to import foods. So less food imported, then you increase again. You add it, to the domestic inflationary effect you're getting from fertilizer impacts, through maize and other staple crops. You're having another inflationary effect coming through the real exchange rate and lower import, etc. So that's what I can say for fertilizer. That's the analysis that we did. But this is, fuel and food. You haven't seen if foods. I can talk about wheat, how the impact of wheat. So the impact of wheat was not that's major, that's important as the one for fertilizer. That's what I can say. But I think it's a good suggestion to look at these three. Now replacing, etc. What I can say is, in the mid and long run, yes, there can be a change of behavior. That country can start, there should be a policies that in place to facilitate that changing behavior so that you diversify. All right. But in the short run, it will be difficult to have that as a policy instrument to ease or to address the issue that the country is facing. The reason why, that will take a lot of investment right now of government in order to make that change, behavior change happen. And even with a lot of investment, it's not going to happen overnight. So it will take some time to bite. All right. So I think, yes, that can be something. Diversification has been something that we have been talking about as, how can I say it? The way of building resilience of these economies. All right, because all these commodities are not affecting the same way by the impact of the crisis. So if you're diversifying on your export side, on the import side, so basically you're likely to be more resilient to these external shocks. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Ismail. Lai, I don't know, we have a question. Do we have time for that? Or?
I think we can do 5 extra minutes. There's a hand up and there's another question in the chat. All right.
So I'll start with the chat and then come to so Amadi Nyang, please, and then Antoinette Salah. Amadi Nyang.
Or perhaps we can just read his question.
Right.
He typed it in the chat.
Allô? Allô, bonjour.
Oui, bonjour Amadi.
Bon, ça va? Au début, je remercie le présentateur. Donc, comme vous le voyez, j'ai deux questions. C'est par rapport à la première, c'est par rapport à l'aide d'urgence que le Fonds monétaire international a apporté au Malawi pour faire face à cette crise. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une solution durable? Ouais. Bon, la deuxième question, c'est par rapport à ces crises comme ce que nous avons constaté en termes de conséquences sur le plan alimentaire et autres. Est-ce que nous pouvons continuer, bon, le Malawi et d'autres pays africains, à rester dans cette, je ne sais pas comment le dire, à chaque fois voir la sécurité alimentaire. Est-ce que nous ne pouvons pas aller au-delà de cela, essayer de voir comment faire pour avoir une souveraineté alimentaire? D'autant plus que nous savons que l'Afrique a pas mal de potentialités en termes de terres arables, donc où on peut vraiment booster l'agriculture pour que vraiment les questions alimentaires soient réglées une bonne fois pour toutes. Je vous remercie. Voilà les quelques questions que j'avais.
Merci Amadi, ce sont de très bonnes questions. Je vais laisser Ismaël répondre, mais très rapidement. Comme Ismaël a dit, lorsqu'on fait face à une telle crise, il y a deux types de solutions. Il y a des solutions à court terme. Il faut régler le problème urgent de ménages qui sont affectés, et il y a des solutions à long terme. Et à long terme, c'est vraiment réfléchir sur comment bâtir cette résilience de nos systèmes alimentaires, de nos économies, pour qu'on ne soit pas dépendant des chocs à l'international et aussi des aides de l'extérieur. C'est comme vous l'avez si bien dit, ça ne fait pas sérieux parce que l'Afrique a le potentiel de le faire, mais je vais laisser Ismaël y répondre. Ismaël, si on peut prendre, if we can take the next two questions and then you will answer to all of them together. So Antoinette and then Greenwell. Antoinette, you are muted. Or maybe
yes,
Greenwell.
okay. Yes,
okay.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ismail, for your presentation and also explaining us how Malawi has a negative terms of trade, which has really deteriorated the economy or slowed down the economy. I have two questions. The first one is about food security. And I haven't seen in the graph, I think it was the first graph about maize. You mentioned maize. I think that maize is one of the staple food in Malawi, and yet it wasn't imported. So that means that maybe in rural areas, the crisis will be more deeper and really affect the poor rural dwellers there. The second question is, what are the plans, if you've had the chance to talk with or discuss or present your research to the government of Malawi? What are the plans to prevent or reduce this decline in growth and underemployment, and then the cost of living as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. And then next and final is Excellency Greenwell Machaya.
Your Excellency, Monsieur John. Okay, so bonjour Ismail. Once again, thanks so much for a very nice presentation. As usual, you do great work. I just wanted to find out, in your baseline, do you think that it includes this information? So from 2021, or maybe slightly earlier, in Malawi, I think they have been reporting a lot of foreign exchange shortages. Now, this is important because due to that foreign exchange shortage, if you are doing business in Malawi, you can't easily get your money out. And then you also can't easily import anything from outside. So it impacts on demands for outside stuff negatively. And there's something that they kind of also noted as positive because of that. The current account, the trade balance improved because there's no inputs, okay, of something else. Do you think that is taken into account in your baseline scenario already? And just as an extra question, do you think there is room at some point that you can focus on what would happen if they improved that Forex market in Malawi? Over to you.
Thank you, Greenwell. So over to you, Ismail.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions. Yes, I think some of the questions, are related to, previous one. I'll talk about l'aide d'urgence dont vous parlez pour le FMI. Oui, je pense que ça pourrait être une solution à court terme, mais pas une solution durable, bien entendu. Solution à court terme, comme je le disais, comme plan, mais je vais le redire en anglais tout de suite pour que notre collègue puisse comprendre et me demander les plans. Un des plans, c'est ça, c'est d'avoir cette source additionnelle de revenus extérieurs qui permet de réduire la pression sur la balance des paiements, pour d'avoir des revenus additionnels, des revenus, des réserves en devises additionnelles qui permettent d'importer. Vous avez vu que le volume des importations baissait de manière très importante parce que les revenus d'importation, les revenus d'exportation baissaient, mais également les prix étaient relativement élevés pour les importations de ces produits. Donc, c'est une solution à court terme. Maintenant, c'est l'utilisation de cette ressource qui va un peu avoir, disons, l'impact final dépendra de l'utilisation de cette ressource. D'accord? Parce que même, oui, à court terme, du fait qu'on a un choc intérieur, on peut importer des produits, d'accord, pour faire face à cela. Mais à long terme, ce n'est pas une bonne solution parce que tu accrois la compétition avec les produits extérieurs, les produits, disons, venant de l'extérieur. D'accord? Donc, normalement, il doit bien réfléchir là-dessus pour pouvoir utiliser ces ressources. Donc, ces ressources peuvent être utilisées pour appuyer également des secteurs spécifiques, comme on parle de maïs, on parle de tobacco, tabac, qui sont des secteurs stratégiques, l'un pour l'alimentation domestique, l'autre pour les exportations. Donc, ce sont des secteurs qui font face à des prix élevés des fertilisants. Donc, ça peut contribuer à améliorer les choses. Maintenant, sécurité alimentaire, souveraineté alimentaire, bon, certainement, je vais laisser John dire quelque chose là-dessus, mais je pense que la sécurité alimentaire également implique en partie la souveraineté alimentaire. Parce que si on parle de souveraineté alimentaire en termes de disponibilité, d'accord, donc il faut avoir une disponibilité de ressources alimentaires qui permettent de nourrir ta population. D'accord? Cette disponibilité, en général, dans la sécurité alimentaire, elle peut être domestique, produite localement, ou bien elle peut être importée. Si on a des réserves, on a suffisamment de réserves souveraines, par exemple, bon, si on ne produit pas suffisamment, on peut importer, donc bâtir notre sécurité alimentaire. Mais la différence avec la souveraineté alimentaire, elle voudrait que la consommation domestique, la production domestique puisse couvrir la consommation domestique, d'accord? Tout en laissant la possibilité d'importer et d'exporter. Ce n'est pas l'autosuffisance. La souveraineté, c'est que ce que tu produis, ton système de production permet d'alimenter ta population actuelle. Mais ce que tu produis, tu exportes une partie et tu importes, tu échanges avec le monde, d'accord? Et échanger avec le monde, c'est important. Parce que n'oublions pas que ce que nous sommes en train de subir comme choc extérieur, ce choc peut être également provenir de l'intérieur. Un choc domestique, si on a une économie fermée, va être difficile à gérer. Une économie relativement ouverte, s'il y a un choc intérieur, un choc climatique, un choc, etc., le commerce permettra d'atténuer l'impact du choc. Donc, le commerce est important. D'accord? La diversification est importante. Donc, il faut commercer, mais il faut diversifier son commerce. Il faut diversifier son économie. All right? Let me come back to in English. So I saw that there is a translation. There is interpretation.
Translation, yeah.
There's an interpretation, so I don't need to come back to that. Okay, all right. So I touched in on the plan also. That's one of the questions was on the plan. So the specific sector, maize, tobacco, those can be, that's the plan. Support these sectors, have, and I also talk about the exchange rate. Now the foreign exchange rate shortage that Greenwell is talking about. No, unfortunately, if you're talking about a very short, a short time policy, or let's say any disruption that the economy has gone through is not captured through the data that we used. All right. So you have to be reflecting the data in the price data that we use in the economy in general that we use as a baseline to say, yes, it has been captured. But if you're talking about recently, 2022, 2023, let's say 2022, 2021 maybe, no, I don't think so, because this data was not available to update the models. Now, can we improvement in foreign exchange, etc.? This is something that can be done. Yes, it's this kind of real model, because the model that we're talking about is a real model. It's computable general equilibrium. So here we're talking about monetary policies. All right, it has a translation. It can be translated into real exchange rate, but I think there are other models that are more suitable to deal with the foreign exchange shortage issue. I think I have food security, maize. Yes, maize is not really a commodity that is highly imported and exported. It's not part of the top exported, imported commodities that I talk about. But what happened is, because of the high price of wheat, and you may have a substitution effect taking place. So you may have that contagion, domestic contagion of external cereal prices that are increasing. Maize prices here are increasing around 20%. So that can also affect, let's say maize and other cereal prices, which especially wheat is increasing significantly, barley is increasing. So you may have a substitution effect, and local staples also, this transmission through local staples prices, which will increase because of the substitution effect. I think I addressed all the questions. Thank you. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Ismail. Just a quick one on the exchange rate. That's a critical problem for Malawi, because if there is a restriction on the use of foreign exchange by the private sector for investment, what it means, what the signal it's sending to exporters is that when you export your product, do not get the money back into Malawi. So that's so maybe because in one of the commodity, I think was sugar, for which the price has gone up quite significantly, but maybe it didn't translate into the improvement in the balance of payment because of that restriction. So removing that restriction might help, but again, you are concerned how much you will get in compared to what will go out. So that's I think that's the challenge that the government will have to address, because the restriction on the use of foreign exchange might give an impression that you are improving your balance of payment because there is less import. Actually, it's not real. But at the same time, you are hurting yourself, because the export revenue is less likely to come back in for that same fear that if it's in, it cannot be used back again. So that's the trade-off that the government of Malawi has to face. So I will hand it over to, thank you very much, Ismail, and thank you for all the participants. I'll hand it over to Lai to tell us where we go from here.
Thank you so much, John, for agreeing to moderate this session. And thank you once again, Ismail, for your brilliant presentation. Thank you to all our attendees for yet another interactive and engaging session. There are a couple of comments that got lost in the general chat, but this conversation can happen offline. So we appreciate your engagement, and we encourage you to keep, sharing your reflections on the findings through this Academia 2063 Ukraine Crisis brief series. There was a comment from Getal Tadase in the chat, and it said 1.6 million job lost means 20% of labor force of Malawi will lose a job, which is too much. We should have a strong case to be made. I think that ties in with the question of what next from John. If you were to have a meeting with the president, what would you say? So I think that based on these numbers, there's a strong case to be made, as indicated by Dr. Getal Tadase. So thank you. It's been a pleasure hosting you today, and don't miss session 15, same time next week. And during that session, we will discuss exposure and vulnerability to global wheat and vegetable oils trade and market disruptions, case study of Malawi. And as a speaker, we will be hosting Lisa Matisal, economist at CEPI, a former senior associate scientist at Academia 2063. And the session will be moderated by Ms. Julie Collins, a senior associate scientist at Academia 2063. Please click on the links in the chat, visit our Ukraine crisis portal on academia2063.org and gain access to the 20-something briefs that have been published so far. And of course, join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Tag us at Academia2063. Thank you. Happy Independence Day again to all our friends from Senegal, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye. Au revoir.